What's up? It is Dave. It is Duncan. Back.
I said let's try and keep it brief. I didn't mean like speed up the way you talk. What's up? How's it going? This is Dave Duncan.
Album review. Let's do it. Jump to the scores. What are you giving it? We are back for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from Finnish Death Metal trio Fearmonger. The band's new album, Horrific Forms, will be released on July 5th. Fearmonger are a power trio based in Helsinki, Finland, formed at the beginning of COVID-19. Fueled by the frustration and anger of isolation, this led to an outlet for the group to pour all their vicious sounds into a new project, combining the classic 90s HM2 chainsaw sound with modern death metal, grindcore and deathcore, culminating in the aggressive and violent sound that is Fearmonger. The band's 2020 EP, Icaros, was heavily influenced by the pandemic, both musically and lyrically. The group then decided to start working on a full-length album and switched the theme to a more futuristic setting, dealing with the ever-increasing threat of AI. The band's debut album, Singularity, was then released in May 2023. According to the band, although intense, the writing process for the upcoming album was very painless, as there was a clarity about the vision that wasn't quite there for the previous album. Fearmonger has always been a DIY band, and this release is no different. Guitarist Ate Karm recorded and mixed the music. Bass player Etu directed and edited the video for the latest video. Mastering on the album was handled by a character called Brad Boatwright at Audio Siege. Brad.
Sounds like a made-up name to me. Also doesn't sound Finnish. We love you, Brad.
You're the man, Brad. So, Fearmonger. Brand new band. I'd never heard of the guys before. They sent a little email and said, you know, what you thinking?
Don't think they did that. If I know my Finnish, the email started off with bonjour. It's Finnish for hello, isn't it?
You're like so close.
Howdy.
They saw what we were reviewing, a Metal Epidemic, and thought they might have something that might fit within our wheelhouse. And I don't want to say they called it Duncan, but they maybe called it. I don't know.
I don't want to say the thing I'm going to say anyway.
Yeah, this is the filthy death metal, Duncan. The filthy death metal with the dark, bleak soul. The stuff that's not safe for children. Yeah, I think like the first thing that surprised me about this was 3-piece.
It does sound pretty fucking monstrous.
Yes, absolutely does. It's like, sure there's only 3 in this band, because it sounds like there's a lot more. This sounds colossal. Like the guitar, I could probably spend the next 20 minutes talking about the guitar tone alone.
Why did we move away from that guitar tone? Like, I don't want to once again throw shade at the tech death metal scene, because I know there's people out there that like that stuff. But I feel that the more we went down that road, the more we've lost the character of the sound of a guitar. And this album is full of character. That character is wielding a giant machete, chasing you through the woods at night, screaming. It is fucking... It's the sort of guitar tone that sounds like it could eat you. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got that like 90s death metal aesthetic, but there's like a really like sludgy kind of corrosive kind of vibe to it as well. It's kind of like, when I was listening, I was thinking it's like if you took like Entombed and mashed it with like Full of Hell, it would give you a kind of like this kind of blend of those two bands, like sound wise, and the guitars. But yeah, guitars like give this album weight, like huge weight. But that's also backed up by some like thunderous drums, and like the bottom end and the bass. You can feel that in your gut when you're listening to this album. I think the mix is really good on this. When I heard the guitars, I was like, are we even going to hear the bass on this album? But they've EQ'd the guitars in a way that kind of allows those lower frequencies to kind of cut through. So I thought they did a really good job in the production. I love the sound of the album. Like straight away, it hits you.
Also kind of mastered really well.
The mastering is particularly good on this album. I'll give it that. And like the music backs it up. Like it's absolutely crushing. Like it is. If you heard of the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, Duncan?
Yes.
Well, these guys have created The Pursuit of Heaviness. This is their sole objective is just to obliterate you from start to end.
How long you been sitting on that for? How long?
Just came to me, Duncan.
Weeks, months, years since I started it. It was the first thing I said when I came out the womb. The pursuit of heaviness. Mum was like, what?
Well, these guys have found it, like, because this album will just ragdoll you for about 27 minutes. But actually, there's a lot of things to really enjoy with, like the colossal sound. There's a lot to really like about this, as a like musically on this album. I like the fact that the first kind of section of the album gave you a kind of it's kind of Fearmonger giving you familiarity. They don't push the experimentation too intensely in the first few tracks. They keep it fairly simple. They just go with like kind of straight up kind of savagery to begin with. There's little hints of things in there. There's a little Blackened bit in there or a little bit of grind, but they don't overdo it at all in the first part of the album. And I thought that was clever because it kind of gives you a handle on what type of band you're dealing with. And if you are new to Fearmonger, if you like missed the last album or the EP, I think that's exactly what you want. It's a very visceral but great introduction to the band. But then as the album unfolds, you get to kind of learn that Fearmonger have different levels. Like you hear on Fear Reigns, they start to kind of dig a bit deeper into the kind of Blackened side of their sound. You get a bit more bleak melody in the guitar work. It never loses the heaviness at any point, but they're still kind of feeding these things in. Harrowing images, that starts to kind of like push the tempo.
There's a bit that because I think it's like after the interlude, there's just like a standalone riff, and when the whole band kicks in, My Anus Prolapse is that fucking heavy, man. It's needlessly heavy.
Yeah, actually, that track kind of starts to show a little bit more of their kind of grind background. It reminded me a little bit of another Finnish band called Rotten Sound that we spoke about before. There was a few kind of similarities in that track. But I loved the fact that Fearmonger were still kind of like conscious to create a moment in a track where it just kind of breaks down. So even when it starts like full of grind riffs and blast beats, they give you this section that just kind of slows right down into that really like monstrous groove. And tracks like Curse From Above or The Eldritch Truth really kind of lean into that, where they push slightly more of a kind of like kind of doom or sludge kind of tempo on those tracks. There's also tracks where you can hear a slight bit more of a kind of more modern delivery. I thought Whispers, I think it's track 6, it had a bit more kind of technicality about it.
It's got a Gojira pinch as well.
Yeah. You could hear, I know they've got some, like they said, they've got some deathcore influences. You could hear that kind of starting to bleed through a little bit. The end part of that track is fucking ridiculous. I was just kind of stopped in my tracks when that kicked in. It was kind of one of those moments where you go, oh, you think you've heard us go like slow and heavy? No, you've actually not heard us go slow and heavy. This is it. And then it just like crushes you right at the end of that track.
Imagine them just repeating that live and getting slower and slower and slower until it's just like a note.
I think like the only thing for me was once that track had kicked in, I kind of wanted something to come in with a bit more pace. But the kind of preceding track, I think it's the Eldritch Truth. It eventually does build up speed, but so it does get there. But I think I was hoping for something a bit more instant right after that track. But the last track, Violent Stillness, is where the band then start to show their ability to kind of build on a track with big kind of dissonant chords. There's a kind of building drum groove. I really liked the chord progression on the track. You could really feel the kind of intensity in the track rising. They also add in some spoken word stuff that builds a bit of the tension as well before they just fully unleash the kind of force of these really kind of death, kind of doom riffs at the end. I really enjoyed this. I mean, I love death metal. I think this shows a band that for only being together a short time are already starting to show huge promise. I think I had a listen to the previous album, Singularity, and this is actually a step kind of forward in the heaviness. It's much darker than that album. I think there's also a bit more distinction between the tracks than on Singularity as well. I think that the balance on this one's really good. I think the kind of ratio of fast and slow stuff is perfect on this. Production's also a kind of step up from that last album. So I feel like if they keep improving like they have on horrific forms, then I imagine it won't be long until the next release comes in, but it's actually got like a decent label kind of behind it rather than it being self-released. I could, like, when I was listening to this, I was thinking I could totally hear this on like a Transcend Obscurity or a Willow Tip Records or something like that. I mean, it's got that level of quality about it, so there's no reason these guys shouldn't be signed up by a big label. Yeah, really enjoyed it. What about yourself? What do you think?
So I'm, once again, I don't read the PR or anything like that, so I'm like absolutely shocked that this isn't on a like on a label.
Yeah.
Because like I could think of, like, this is pre-catered for a sea of fans.
Yeah.
Like worldwide. Like this ticks so many boxes and gets so much right. What I think Fearmonger do really, really well is infuse that sludge sound in with the death metal. The death metal is already ominous, right? Sludge is heavy, but see, when you mix sludge and death metal together, you really do get a sound that is worthy of the name Fearmonger. Like, some of those riffs and the pacing just are, like, monstrous was the word I used earlier, and I'm stick with it. It does sound violently scary, like, and it's foreboding, and it's like ominous, and the tracks that don't give you pace lumber. Like, the analogy is like a slasher killer in a movie, you know, never in a hurry to get anywhere, but you know someone's about to be viciously stabbed. Like horrific Forms does that pretty much through its runtime. It's like there are very few moments of anything where the band, unless they are letting instruments ring out, actually give you any room to breathe.
Yeah.
And the way that they've recorded and the thickness of that guitar and the bass and the punishment the drums bring through really do fill up the sound perfectly. Once again, nodding to it's what sludge does really well. Sludge and doom fill space. So it might not be the most detuned thing, but it's a wall of fucking sound you're being hit with. They've taken the best elements there. It's hard to, like you say, not mention the guitar tone all the way through this. I fucking adore it. It really, really does make me kind of opine for a simpler time before people had like something they plugged into a computer and they downloaded something and pressed a button. They were like, no, I sound like, you know, like there is something about just letting it go dank, and then just bringing the thunder with it. What I loved about it overall, and I'm going to side with you a little bit here towards the end, I felt like you started to get a little bit more of the character of what the band's, maybe a little bit more of their influences on their sleeve towards the end of the album, where they get a little bit more experimental. And when I say experimental, I don't mean like you're getting like 7/8 jazz. You know, I mean, as in you get like other genre influences that like that more than just scratch the surface. They're more embedded in the songs. But it does kind of feel like after you get through tracks like Harrowing Images or Whispers, I do kind of feel like there's almost an instinctive need for something to come in very fucking fast, very fucking hard to kind of pull you back up. And the album kind of, it gets more sludgy as it goes on. It sludgifies towards the end. And I feel like there's maybe a misstep in the pacing just a little bit. Maybe taking one of those earlier songs and putting it towards the end.
Yeah.
That being said, though, there isn't really a bad song here at all. I think the production is handled perfectly. I love how playful they are in switching up. Like, no interlude section into back breakdown or anything like that follows the same pattern. They're really, I don't know if it's a conscious thing or they just don't write that way, but it did kind of feel like there was attention paid to, all right, we've utilised that in the previous song, so we're not going to do the big breakdown, disgusting bit on this one here. We're going to change up a little bit.
Yep.
And as a result of that, it kind of felt very fresh, and it's very inviting on subsequent listens, because you never really feel lethargic listening to it, because there's always another element where you're like you say, you think you've heard the heaviest thing, and then you're like, oh no, that song later on's got an even heavier. But I love that element about it. Vocally, just fucking absolutely crushing. I love his tone. Absolutely love his tone. It's almost like an extension of the guitar. It sits in a similar register, and it has a kind of buzzy, viciously sort of death gargly sort of roll to it. It's picture perfect made for this. I'm kind of shocked. I expected you to tell me that was on some label somewhere. And yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we'll be waiting long to see them land some sort of label. There's no there's no gimmick on this at all.
Mm.
Like, even a little bit. There's no synthy noise. There's no, weird interlude. There's no samples or anything like that. It is like this is Horrific Forms captured on CD. It's fucking awesome, man. So yeah, I really, really, really dug this one. I thought it was really well put together.
Nice. So final thing, scores for Horrific Forms by Fearmonger. This is utterly crushing. It's an easy 4 out of 5 for me. I think as good as this is, I actually think there's more to come. I think there's more in the tank from these guys, and I fully expect the next release to have jumped up again in quality. And you can hear it from the EP to the last album and this one. It just increases on every release. So thoroughly looking forward to hearing what they do next. But for this one, it's a 4 out of 5 for me. What about yourself? What are you thinking?
Oh, we're twinning here. This is a 4. Like you, I think there's maybe more that they're not showing us. I'd love to see tinge more Blackened elements. Love to see a little bit more of the grind. See that would break up for pace wise, and they tease it so much and they never commit to it, and it's kind of feel just it. 4. I'm very, 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 very much looking forward to seeing where these guys go next.
Nice. So that is Fearmonger's Horrific Forms out on July 5th. Links below to the band, to the pre-order, to the Spotify, Apple, all that sort of stuff. Check it out. Have a listen to the band, see what you think. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. That is our review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.